Hey gamers, we're back with another episode of Let's Create a Competitive Card Game. In this episode, I'll be coming up with the combat phase. So let's get started. Okay, so last episode we came up with the action system, and the action system is very similar to chains and stacks in other games. So the way it works is that whenever a player performs a game action, and game actions being playing a card, using an effect, drawing a card, assigning damage, or ending their turn, then their opponent may respond to that game action by using an effect or playing a skill card. And if a player chooses not to respond to a game action, then the person performing that game action can respond to their own game action by using an effect or playing a skill card. And on their turn, they may also respond to game actions with talent cards. And the way it works, like I said, is sort of like chains and stacks. So whenever a series of responses are made, then they resolve in reverse order. So for this episode, I want to start the foundation of a combat phase. So let's go ahead and put that here, and let's add some space. Let's just say combat. Okay, so first, to perform combat, you have to have some type of, let's say, targets. So in this game, you have life, which is on your class card, and there are other cards which may have life, like maybe relics or characters may have some life. So we can say that only cards with life can be targeted for an attack. And let's also say that if a player does not declare a target, then we'll just assume that they are attacking their opponent's class card. So yeah, let's say something like that. Let's say a player does not declare a target for their attack. So yeah, if no one, if the opponent does not declare a target, then we'll just assume that they are attacking the class card. And we can also say that only cards with attack or defense may perform combat. And I'll abbreviate this. Now, what else can we say about combat? So, one of the things that you can respond to is assigning damage. So, we'll say that combat is made up of two phases, one of which will be the assigning damage, and we'll say that the other is the resolution phase. So, yeah, let's say combat is made up of two phases. And we'll say the damage assigning phase and let's say damage resolution phase. Now, how do you start combat? Let's say that you can choose one or more cards to attack. As in this game, you can attack with one card, you can attack with two cards at a time, 3, 4, etc. And you can do as many attacks in a turn as you want / as you can. So let's say in order to start a battle, the turn player must choose one or more cards to attack with. Alright, so they have to choose one or more cards to attack with and a target. And let's also say that cards can only attack once per turn. So you choose the cards that you're going to attack with and the target. So if you're choosing to, let's say, attack a class card, you choose how many of your cards you're attacking with, and you say you're attacking the class card. And then the opponent can choose 0 or more cards to defend with. We'll say 0 or more. And now we can say once we have the attackers and the defenders, then the damage assigning phase begins. And what we can do is, so that we know, let's say damage assigned. And let's underline this. So what happens in the damage assigning phase? So let's say that the attacking player gets to assign their damage first to the defenders, if any. Let's say any defending, let's say cards, as not just followers can defend, maybe there'll be relics that can defend, as relics can have attack and defense, etc. And after the attacking player assigns their damage, we'll say that the defending player then assigns damage to the attacking cards. So after you assign damage, let's also clarify and say that damage can be divided and assigned in any way. And by any way, I mean whole numbers. So for instance, if you're attacking with a card that has, let's say, 5 attack, and they're defending with 3 defenders, one of which has 5 defense, one has 3 defense, and one has 2 defense. You can put all 5 on the one with 5 defense, or you could put 3 on the one with 3 and 2 on the one with 2, or you could put 2 on the one with 2, 3 on the one with 5, and none on the other one. So you can really divide the damage however you want to. And something that we can do, we can just make a note here and just say that if a player chooses to defend with 0 cards, the attackers assign all damage to their target. And we'll say assigns, we'll say all damage to their target. And now we'll say that, let's say, once both players have assigned damage, and remember, doing damage, assigning, you can respond. So while the attacking player does assign damage first, so when they're divvying up their damage, each time they assign damage to a card, you do have a chance to respond, and you as in the defending player. And if you choose not to respond to them assigning damage, then they themselves can respond by playing a skill or talent or effect. So let's say something like both players have assigned damage, and let's say all responses have resolved, the damage resolution phase begins. And we'll say all players, because who knows, maybe there will be multiplayer in this game. So yeah, once all players have assigned damage and all responses, let's say have resolved, the damage resolution phase begins. Let's see, once all players have assigned damage and all responses have resolved, the damage resolution phase begins. And we'll say if any, players don't have to respond. And let's just add a space in there, just for readability. Now, what should we note? Let's note a few things here. Let's say that if a defender stops being a defender for whatever reason, then any damage assigned to that defender has to be reassigned. So let's note that. So let's say if a defender stops becoming a defender, or stops being a defender, and let's do this. Let's make these Untitled. And how does a defender stop being a defender? So let's say a defender stops being a defender if it is removed from combat, or if, say, it's removed from the play area, or if a card or some type of effect says that it's no longer a defender. So let's just note that. Let's say removed from combat. And I know removed from combat and removed from play may seem like the same thing, but there could possibly be a difference, so I am going to list them separately here. And I'll list the card effects and abilities as two different things, as I do have some sort of idea of how these will be different within this game. And some cards will have effects, but others will have abilities, and the main difference will be, say, an effect that is just like a you use a card and it happens, and an ability will be something that you choose when it happens. So something like that. So now, what is the damage resolution phase? So let's say that once all damage is dealt, let's say cards with lethal damage are destroyed, and lethal damage will be a keyword within this game. So yeah, let's say once all damage is dealt. Let's say cards with lethal damage are destroyed. And I'll highlight this as this will be a keyword. And let's say all other damage remains on all cards until the start of the next turn. And let's see, where did we put our phases? So something I've been thinking about is we do have this start phase, and we do say first all damage done to cards on previous turn is removed. And then we say that you can do all of these other actions in any order. So I'm thinking of maybe having something before the start phase. So maybe something like a, let's say, recovery phase. And I really don't want to use the word recovery phase, as that is used in several games. But for now, I will just put it in here as recovery phase. And we'll say that for the recovery phase, we'll take this out and put that there. So the recovery phase is the very first phase. So now this start phase makes a lot more sense with respect to you being able to do all of these start actions in any order that you want. So back to the damage resolution phase, and this shouldn't be bold, should be underlined. Now let's say all other damage remains on all cards until the start of the next turn. All other damage remains on all cards. And you can remove damage by other means prior to the start of the next turn, but these are just the rules as written, as anytime a card contradicts the rules, then the card is right. That is the golden rule of all card games. Now, what are some notes within the damage resolution phase? Let's say that all attackers and defenders deal their assigned damage, let's say at the same time. And honestly, I think it might make a little bit more sense to actually put the note here, at least for this. So let's say all attackers and defenders. Let's say still in play. And now I say at the same time as I am thinking that there may be effects which can make certain cards deal their damage sooner than other cards. And it just makes a little bit more sense here to put this at the top of the damage resolution phase as opposed to putting it up under here after once all damage is dealt. So yeah, this will be the combat phase. So just to go over it again, let's say only cards with life can be targeted for an attack, and you can only attack with a card, or rather you can only attack or defend with a card if it has attack or defense, and you can only target cards with life. And the attacker can choose to attack with one or more cards as many times as they want during their turn, and the defender can choose to defend with 0 or more cards. And every time a card assigns damage, then a player can respond, as that is a game action. And during damage resolution, all cards inflict their damage at the exact same time. So something else to note here in combat is, I don't think I mentioned that a card has to be in play, or rather what they call summoning signals. I didn't mention that, and I know some games don't have summoning sickness, like Yu-Gi-Oh! There is a summoning sickness if you are the first player, but after the first turn there is no summoning sickness. So I think for a game like this, it may make sense to start the testing with some summoning sickness in play. So let's say, yeah, may choose one or more cards to attack with. Cards may only attack once per turn. So let's put that here. Cards may only attack. Let's say if they've been in play since the start of the turn. And let's say, and only once per turn. And again, there may be some effect that allows cards to attack more than once a turn. And let's say, so something else to think about is, in a lot of games, when cards attack, they tap or exhaust, which is just to say they turn sideways whenever they attack or defend. So I do like the idea of cards needing to be, let's say, ready in order to attack. And my idea of defense, though, is a card only needs to be ready to defend, but they don't turn sideways or they don't tap or exhaust when they defend. So essentially, you can defend with your card as many times as you want in a turn, as long as the combined damage in that turn isn't lethal damage. So if you have a card with 5 defense and you block 1 combat and you've taken 2 damage, remember damage lasts until the end of the turn. So technically that card still has 3 defense left over. So you can block, say, 3 more attacks from cards with 1 attack each if you wanted to. So I think that is a little bit different for most games out there. So yeah, let's mention these in here somewhere. Turn player may choose 1 or more, let's say, ready, and I'll bold this as I'm going to define it in the, let's say, game mechanics or keyword section. 1 or more ready cards to attack with. The opponent then chooses 0 or more, and I'll say ready again. And again, I might not use ready. I'm just putting it here as it is the first word I think of right now. So the turn player may choose one or more ready cards to attack with. You choose one or more ready cards to attack with. Okay. And here's a good thing for me to think about. When do cards tap or exhaust? Is it during the combat initiation when you are declaring, or should they exhaust after combat? So that could be a tactical decision, as you could attack with a card that is ready, and as long as it's ready, you can declare the attack and you can assign the damage, and before damage resolution, or say during the damage assignment phase, if cards don't tap when you declare the attack, then in the damage assigning phase, you could tap them for their effect, and they're still technically a valid attacker because they were ready to begin with. So yeah, I think I might do that. That is a very tactical decision. So I think what I'll do for now is we'll say that in the damage resolution phase is where you tap or exhaust any attackers. And I'll play test it this way to begin with. So let's just say already attackers must exhaust. Or all attackers still ready are now exhausted. Yeah, I think this will be interesting to play around with. It definitely adds some strategy to the game. And the fact that defenders don't have to exhaust is also kind of tactical. The fact that they can defend multiple times, or as many times technically as they have defensive 3 big attacks, or attack with a bunch of cards with 1 attack per se. So yeah, so that will be all for this episode. Next episode, I'm going to start coming up with some game mechanics. And game mechanics are things sort of like keywords within the game. So think blitz, trample, things like that. So I'm going to come up with some of those which will be used for the very first set of cards, and then after I come up with a good amount of those, I'll go ahead and get into designing the cards. And actually, before actually designing the cards, I need to think about what cards will be in the first set. So what will be the type of cards in the first set? Is typically in a card game, they come out with certain cards in a certain set. So let's think in the first set, maybe I'll come up with a type for the, let's say the 3 colors. So a type under red, a type under blue, and a type under yellow. So I will actually have to think of that before coming up with some card effects. And then something else to mention is I have been talking with an artist, so I should hopefully have art kind of locked down. So when I'm coming up with some of these effects, I can start getting art drawn right away. Alright guys, if you like this, please be sure to like, subscribe, and all of that other good stuff. Thanks.